All right, folks, welcome on into another edition of the High School Huddle, your one-stop shop for everything and all things Section 5 sports. I'm AJ Feldman. He's Carl Jones. We are getting into the good stuff of the high school fall sports season. We got football in their final game of the regular season. Sectionals coming upon us. We got soccer into sectionals. We got volleyball finish up their last games of the regular season. We already had some tennis sectionals, golf, swimming's coming up soon. Things are all coming to a head here, Carl.
Yeah, it's an exciting part of the season. We get to see all the teams, battle things out in the regular season, try to see who's the cream of the crop, what teams are dominant, what teams, can make headway during this postseason run. And it's all coming to fruition. Who wants to raise the brick? I love those celebrations. I know you do as well, getting to see the kids fight over that brick because they really love that celebration. In Ohio, we didn't have a brick. We just had a normal trophy. Always cool to raise that, but something about the brick that's unique and special.
Yeah, we got the cream of the crop rising to the top. We got the Bills beating down the Chiefs. We got the Syracuse Orange still undefeated, 1 of 9. We got 1 of 9 taking on Clemson. Syracuse, keep it on chugging.
Man, I don't even know what to say. I'm at a loss for words. Shout out to the fellas, bowl eligible, but at this point, we don't care about the bowl. We trying to go down to the Death Valley, make something shake against the Clemson Tigers. It'll be a tall task, obviously, Dabo and his machine that he got down there in South Carolina. But I got faith in my guys. So whatever the money line is, put it on Syracuse and go with it. Go from there.
I mean, I'm not the biggest college football historian. Are there any Syracuse Clemson upsets in recent history that we should know of?
2017. I mean, for those who don't know at home, I was actually on that team in 2017 when the Tigers came to the Dome on a Friday night, ESPN late night edition, and they got upset. So miracles do happen before y'all call me cuckoo for thinking that this can happen. It's obviously not probable, but like I said, I'm always have faith in my guys. But it's a special season, and I'm just beyond proud of the things they've done so far.
Let's just hope everybody keeps track of their helmet after the game, no matter what happens.
Yeah, not trying to lose one of those and get cussed out, but that's a story for another day.
Exactly. So we got a big time college football game coming up, big in the rankings. Let's now move on to our high school football rankings. Later on in the show, we're going to dive into the boys and girls soccer sectionals, break that down. It's already picking up. There's some games going on tonight in Class AA and girls soccer specifically. But we're going to start off with the football, our latest our latest local rankings of the Section 5 teams. Start off with the big schools, as we always do. UPrep staying at number 1 with a 7-0 record. However, we keep talking about how, clearly 7-0. They're winning all their games. They're putting a check in the win column. Nothing's going in the loss column. But another game this past week where it was not a super impressive dominant showing by the Griffins. They went into Fairport. They were down in the second half. They needed a fourth quarter touchdown to get the victory there. And this is a UPrep team that I don't know if they play with there's a lot of, you go to a UPrep game, they basically have to score 2 more touchdowns than they should because about 2 per game get called back because of penalties. I know this is a big thing the coaching staff, I'm sure, is stressing. The film room, they're circling them, they're highlighting them. They're making it very difficult on themselves. Eventually, that might come back to bite them in the butt. It hasn't yet, but that's certainly a point of a notice for this Griffins team.
Yeah, I was at a different game that Friday night, and you had left, I believe, early on to go on to our next game. And I'm talking to Karen from Primetime, and she goes, "Yo, you got any updates for that UPrep Fairport game?" I'm like, "No, last I checked, there was up 7-6." She goes, "Well, you need to check back in because they losing right now." And I'm like, man, what? Like, you got your source is clearly not sourcing right now. They're not adding up. And she was right, obviously. And yeah, I mean, UPrep for their record and how dominant players they have on the perimeter and the trenches as well. They haven't quite had one of those games where it's like punching guys in the mouth from start to finish. So who knows if that comes back to haunt them in the sectional run? I know Coach Young over there is trying his best, get those guys in shape and play a complete game for all, I guess, 48 minutes in high school.
Yeah, it was 6-0 at the half. UPrep led. Fairport took a 7-6 lead, then UPrep came back. And then this is kind of been a long-term thing for UPrep. I remember last year, I mean, this is just especially painful for us who need quick highlights and to get on to another game. They're the Section 5 Kings. Unfortunately, they're the kings of many things. They're also the kings of getting touchdowns called back because of penalty. A lot of holdings against Fairport. It was illegal procedure. It was illegal motion, something of that nature. So, on the bright side, coaches love things to talk about, harp on their team, especially when they got a 7-0 team. The penalties certainly one to keep an eye on. Number 2, we're ascending the Victor Blue Devils up in our state ranking, or our local rankings. I keep saying state rankings. We are ascending them up from number 4 to number 2. For a multitude of reasons, just because we've kind of kept them at that like 4 spot, 3 spot, whatever, but they just keep grinding away. We keep talking about McQuaid having trouble with Penfield a little bit last week. McQuaid being tied at 7 at the half against Rush Henrietta. Victor is just not doing that. Last recent weeks, this most recent week, they beat Corning Painted Post 27-8, which is a pretty darn good team. They were ranked in the state rankings entering that game against Victor. I think they're now just hanging on in the receiving votes category. But, they beat Penfield 41-14. They beat Rush Henrietta 29-0. They blew out Fairport. They beat a really good Pittsburgh team 27-14. It's just that UPrep game on their record. And I think, we've just kind of been underrating this Victor team a little bit. And I think it's time to move them up to number 2.
I agree. I mean, even in week 1, they were winning. I believe I don't want to say majority of that game, but for a decent portion of that game in week 1 against UPrep, they were up. So clearly they got the horses that at least go toe for toe with UPrep. And I know that we think of with Victor as like the ground and pound, hit him in the mouth, smash mouth type of team, but they could put up points too. I mean, it's not like they're winning these games 12-0, like 18-6. Like they're in the 40s. They've scored 29. Like they clearly, although it might not be the most like air raid type of offense, I mean, they're clearly able to put up points and be explosive. Sam Gotham in the backfield. Every time I go to a game, he's scoring 1-yard touchdowns, and like when in doubt, they just give the ball to him on the goal line, and he's always punches it in. Yeah, this Victor team is legit on both sides of the ball, and they'll have a tall test coming up with our team next in the rankings.
Exactly. They've got McQuaid coming up this week. That's going to be a really good one. Where he got them at number 3 in our rankings once again. Just took a little while to beat Penfield. Their QB DeMarco, I don't think he's played the last couple of weeks. We don't know exactly what's going on there. But McQuaid just keeps on. They keep winning. Once again, can't fault them for winning, but it's been a little bit more difficult than they'd like. Number 4, Schrader, 7-0. They dropped down a spot, but by no fault of their own. They just keep taking care of business. Number 5. You've got East. Carly got a chance to see East this past week. Beat down Athena. A little close there, but Amari Young really stepped up there.
Yeah, we were in the office, and I thought the score was like about to be tied 6-6, but Athena had went up 12-0 or something of that nature. I'm like, oh yeah, we got to get out there. And lo and behold, East comes storming back. They're leading before even halftime at that point. I get out there, they're up 2 scores. Like, that team is explosive. They got horses led by Amari Young, who's our player of the week. 5 touchdowns, I believe. I mean, just those dudes have, like, they can go. Like, that's genuinely what they can do. I hope, obviously, I hope all these teams are successful in their own ways, but Schrader East matchup, man, at some point down the line with all the explosive guys on both sides, man, I would love to see that. But East is more than deserving of this 5th ranking for sure.
Yeah, and plus, Zymir Jackson just had a straight up ridiculous throw. It literally made me, it was a jaw dropping throw. It was running, flushed out of the pocket, 2 steps off of his feet, 55 yards right in the bucket to his receiver. It was one of them. Honestly, it might be the most impressive throw I've seen from a high school athlete that I've covered personally in my time.
No, that was nuts. Like, you had to run it back for me a couple of times. I'm like, man, just off, like, he had no feet on the ground. He just like was running and then running jump. Like, Man, I don't know. These kids been watching a lot of Josh Allen and Mahomes these days, and now they just trying to add stuff in their bag, and they think like they're them. But it's working out, so I'm all ears for it.
Yeah. Next couple spots in our rankings, staying status quo. Pittsburgh 3-4. They beat Edison. Hilton, another nice quality win for them. They beat a pretty good Brighton squad. They're at 6-0. They're going to have a good matchup coming up this Friday against Canandaigua, also at 6-1. So a good playoff primer for both of those teams, both of those schools. Right now, we've got them in the number 2 spot in their respective Class A classes. So a good test for both of those teams. Number 9, we've got Aquinas. They just beat Rush Henrietta 3-4. They really, it's not super overwhelming, but they seem to be finding something going with CJ Robinson kind of being the catalyst of their offense, sophomore running back. Once again, another just ridiculous week last week against Rush Henrietta. And then Rush Henrietta at number 10, still at 3-4, still trying to figure things out. But they did have some good moments against Aquinas, kept it close. It was tied after halftime. So that's where we got our top 10 in the big school rankings here.
Yeah, once again, I would say probably that top 5 or so is, they've shown their worth, no doubt, this year. And then that bottom 6 can change week to week, but I would say Pittsburgh, we talked about a few weeks back, when they're hot, they're rolling. And I know they're only 3-4, but anyone who's watched Pittsburgh, if they're all healthy, good luck stopping them. And I don't care who you are in 6-5. But going to the little school bracket, we had a prime matchup between our top 3 teams, Batavia and HFL. And Batavia, once again, another regular season matchup where they took it right to HFL. They were up 21-0, I believe, at one point, and ended up winning the game 35-20. Batavia, they got the horses. Java McFarland's, I believe, at quarterback. They were just running the ball all over HFL. Like the first half, I want to say it was 21-0, if I'm not mistaken. And HFL couldn't get anything going on offense. I missed the first quarter, but everyone that I talked to said, Batavia has the athletes to slow down this high-powered HFL attack, and they proved it in that game. And man, HFL made things interesting late, but man, Batavia, they're more than deserving of the number 1 spot.
Yeah, early in the season when Batavia beat Monroe, I believe it was 28-7. We kind of looked at that as a reason to bump down Monroe in our rankings. Turns out it was a great reason to put Batavia at number 1 because, like you said, they got a new quarterback, Javin McFarland's. They figured out how they want to win football games, running it, controlling the clock, playing good defense, all of the above. He could air it out a little bit, but Batavia seems primed. Certainly a clear number 1 in our small school rankings as they try and repeat as sectional champions.
Yeah, and then going on to number 2, you have Monroe, who they followed up their win over HFL with just dominant win over Geneva, winning 64-8. They'll end their season this week against at home against Palmac, team who they should take care of, but this is the Section 5 season. Who knows what's going to happen? And then dropping down is a new spot, a new team at number 3. AJ, talk about our new number 3 team, who I guess has been handling business all year long.
Yeah, we've had Oakfield, Alabama at 3 before, but we boosted them back up in our rankings after Monroe kind of crashed the party a little bit. Yeah, the Aggies just keep on chugging. There's not a ton you could say else about it. Last week they beat South Seneca 63-6. It's just the Aggies just keep on rolling. They got Notre Dame Batavia this week. I believe Notre Dame Batavia does not have too impressive of a record so far this season. But yeah, Oakfield, Alabama just keeps on passing every single test. Previous this season, they beat Leroy 38-6. Leroy's a team that, as we get to in just a little bit, we have them very high up in our rankings as well. Actually, Notre Dame Batavia does have a 4-2 record, so a little bit of a challenge for them, but I don't think it'd be too much of a speed bump for the Aggies. But yeah, Oakfield, Alabama. Last year, they were sectional champs. They went far. This year, it'll probably be the same. Still haven't played Alexander, who we've got later, but good luck. Good luck. That's all we'll say.
Yeah, good luck. Y'all gonna need it. At number 4, you have HFL. There's suffering 2 tough losses to Monroe and Batavia. Still a high-powered offense, but hopefully they get things back on track heading into sectional play next week. And then at number 5, as you alluded to, we have Leroy. 5 through 7, I don't want it's not really a huge gap. All these teams are kind of interchangeable, but with Leroy taking down Attica, they're deserving of that number 5 spot. And then at 6, we have Attica. And then at 7, with a very, very impressive win that you saw, last weekend. ERG bumped up to 7th, taking down Penny and Dundee. What did you see in that one?
Yeah, that game, it was interesting because Penny and Dundee got out to a strong lead in this one. I think it was a 20-point lead they got to in the first half. ERG was just committing turnovers. They had 3 interceptions in the first half. There was this strange play where, there was I believe it was ERG threw an interception. Then the guy was making his run back and he fumbled it. And then one of his own teammates picked it up and ran it all the way for a touchdown. So, but East Rochester Gananda, they were just having a really impressive second half, certainly against Penny and Dundee, who came into that game undefeated. You got Manny Sepulveda on the outside. You got K. Darrell Sneed on the outside. One more running back whose name currently escapes me as I try and remember it. But those 2 running backs combined for, I think it was 3 touchdowns, over 300 yards combined. So East Rochester Gananda, the defending sectional champs, they haven't had a real reason for us to push them up their rankings yet. They were kind of facing, some of the middling teams in Class C. But East Rochester Gananda, if they can keep the turnovers at bay, the mistakes a little bit, this Class C bracket, it might be one of our most interesting we've got in the sectional tournament coming.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you got 4 teams back to back to back right there. Alluded to it right there. Penny and Dundee dropping from 5 to 8, suffering a tough loss, as you alluded to ERG. At number 9, Alexander still there at 6-0, and not to, I guess, sneeze at anything that Alexander's done this year because they've handled business. They're ranked 7th in the state, so like this isn't like some slouch team that we just have at 9 because like we don't think they're like a quality team. It's just that the teams above them have impressive resumes, but this is still a quality team. That's ranked 7th in the state in Alexander. And then wrapping up our small school rankings is Kennesaw Greenwood. Once again, 7-0, 8-man love. Gotta love them dominating the 8-man division, and we have no other reason to bump them out because they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, eventually they're going to start moving up a little bit once these teams start losing the playoffs, and Kennesaw Greenwood just keeps on rolling. And Mike Daniels, the other running back for East Rochester Gananda. So that's where we've gotten our small school bracket, our rankings. Sooner or later, these teams are all going to figure it out for themselves. But for now, that's where we got these teams coming up. Speaking of figuring out for themselves, we've got the sectional tournaments for boys and girls soccer on the horizon. They've actually started in a lot of these brackets. They're going, some of them going underway tonight. A lot of brackets, so we can't break down quite every single one of them, but we're going to highlight a favorite that we like and a sleeper team that we like in both the boys and the girls, respective sports, I guess you could say. We'll start off with Carl with a team that you got the chance to go out and do a story with today. Carl, your boys' favorite team that you're looking to highlight here.
I mean, the Wayne boys soccer team, they were obviously a great team this year, going undefeated for the first time in over 63 years. But they're even better people. I got to meet some of the captains on the team, and they're just hilarious dudes. And that goes to show that obviously you need a talented team out there to win, but also when they're close-knit like they are, it all comes full circle and you can be competitive. But they're my favorite in Class A. I mean, these numbers are kind of ridiculous. They scored 57 goals this year and allowed just 2. Like, I don't care who you're playing. I don't care if you're playing my grandma. I don't care if you're playing me. I don't care if you're playing Messi. 2 goals is 2 goals, all right? I
will say this: if they were playing against Messi, that'd be a little more impressive, though.
Right, you're right. But like 2 goals, no matter what. And I know that people are going to talk about their competition. Well, I mean, they got to lace their shoes up just like they do. So, I mean, shout out to the Eagles for their impressive resume. Class A's tough. I mean, real tough. As we'll get into a little bit later. But for their resume, I gotta have them as my favorite, man. I mean, 15-0 is nothing to sneeze at.
And I did get a chance to watch that story they did. One thing I did like, actually, is that they kind of acknowledged that, other schools might be doubting their record a little bit, might be doubting their Class A ranking. They know that they're not playing, the Monroe County schools every single night, game in and game out. And I think, it's good to, take that on as a challenge. Be like, all right, you know what? We're going to get you eventually. We'll be ready for it.
They did say that because they've been knocked out by Pittsburgh 2 out of the last 3 years, lost to Livonia a couple of years before that. And they were like, yeah, we don't see them in league play, but it is what it is. We'll see them when we see them. I was like, ooh, I can't wait.
And I believe that's actually against Sutherland, the matchup that you're talking about. I believe that would actually not even be the sectional championship game, because I think it's Wayne at 1, and then you've got Sutherland at 4. So that's even a prime sectional semifinal matchup that we've got to look forward to. My favorite, we're going to go in Class C. I'm going to take a nice little layup as well. I'm going to go with the Avon boys soccer team, #1 in the state at 16-0. The numbers, once again, ridiculous, as you would expect. 59 goals, 3 goals allowed, 59-3. So they're putting up those ridiculous numbers as well. Lee Harkey leading the way for the Braves with 25 goals on the season. He scored almost half of their goals and 5 assists. And, which kind of surprised me a little bit, because, you see a team with such a dominant record, a dominant ranking in the state, things of that nature. You think, powerhouse, big boys, things like that. Avon's going for their first ever sectional title. So not only are they trying to keep this ranking alive, they're just trying to raise a brick for the first time ever.
When looking for a story this week, it was between Avon and Wayne, and I had no idea that they were going for their first sectional title. But just like Wayne, that ridiculous goal ratio just don't make sense. I don't care what classification you're in. That's just nuts to even think about. Exactly. And then for my sleeper, I'm gonna stay in Class A. I talked about it's a tough division. I'm going with the Churchville Childline Saints, and I haven't seen this team play this year, but this statistic right here threw me for a loop. I talked about it with AJ right before we went on air, and it doesn't make sense. So Churchville Childline is the 5th seed, and they're 9-4-2 on the season, so they've had a respectable regular season. They've scored 19 goals this year. Not a typo, folks. 19 goals. They played 15 games and scored 19. So they're literally playing at a snail's pace, stifling defense. We're not trying to go out there and rack up no goals. We get our 1 goal, we cool, we're going in our shell, and good luck. That's how they're playing. And I mean, styles make fights, obviously, and they have a style that I don't know if any team really sees too often. So I just want to give some love to their goalies, Mason Simmons, the freshman with 51 saves on the year, and another goalie, Josh Smith Jr. with 25 saves. Those 2 goalies, and obviously their defense as a whole has been getting this done. But I mean, styles make fights, obviously, and they play that style. We're going to take you to the back alley, and you're going to, to the deep end of the water, and good luck trying to swim, because that's how they play. And I mean, if you catch them on an off night, or if you're on an off night, good luck, because the Saints might take you to the water where you can't swim.
Yeah, you mentioned they're 9-4-2. 7 of those 9 wins are 1-0. 7 of the 9 are 1-0. So hey, defense wins championships. They got a pretty good defense. They know how to control, like you said. For my boys sleeper team, I'm going to go up to Class AA. I'm going to go with the Hilton Cadets. They've got an 8-6-2 record on the season. They come into the Class AA tournament as the 4 seed. So they're going to get Schrader tomorrow on Friday. Then they're going to get McQuaid in the semifinals. So a tough task ahead of them. But you mentioned these close games, with Churchville Chili. They've lost 6 games so far this season. Only 1 of them is by more than a goal so far. So this is a team that is always in their games. And that one game was a 2-0 shutout very early in the season to Fairport, which is obviously a dominant team so far this season. Later in the season, they only lost them 1-0. They're 3-0 in their last 3 games down the stretch. They've got some good wins so far this season over Thomas, over Mendon, over Churchville Chili, just to name 3 of them. So you want to talk about a team that can maybe upset, the McQuaids and the Hilton, or the Fairports of the world. Consider the Hilton Cadets.
Love to see that. And let's go over to the ladies' side, where starting with the favorites, Palmac, once again, just like Wayne and Avon, with a ridiculous goal differential, 75 goals scored, 3 allowed. But it's more than just that. They've actually played against some of those higher classification teams and held their own. They tied Mendon, who is a very, very good team that we'll get to a little bit later. And then they lost to Sutherland, who's another a good team in their own right, 1-0. So clearly this Palmac team is not just good for Class B. This is a good team regardless of classification. And they're led by, come on, the Maya Eichwood show. I mean, she 30 goals on the year, 14 assists. She's seventh in Section 5 seventh in Section 5 in points this year. I mean, they'll go as far as she can go, and clearly her back is heavy and big enough to take this team wherever they want to go. I mean, every time we look up, that she's putting up some ridiculous numbers, and not just to act like she's not the only one on the team. Jenna Santelli also getting it done with 33 points this year, and then Emma Robinson also with 9 goals on the season. Red Raiders, my favorite to come out of Class B1, because I have no other reason to think otherwise.
Yeah, sectional champs last year. Palmac has been doing this for a long time in girls soccer, so clearly it's going to be tough to knock them off in the Class B1 bracket. For my girls' favorite team that I'm going to highlight, the Menden Vikings. And I know what you're probably thinking here. Wait, Menden, it's a Class A team. That's Spencerport's bracket. What are we doing? And you're right. The Spencerport Rangers have won the last 6 sectional championships in Class A. They're right there at the number 2 seed, but we got to give some love to the Menden Vikings. 14-0-2 on the season, 0 losses so far. For those of you who don't know where the losses and don't know where the ties go, one of their ties was early in the season to Sutherland. It was 1-1. They followed up later this season with a 3-0 win, and then their other tie was to Palmac. As we just talked about, Palmac pretty good. So the Menden Vikings are just putting on a show so far this season, haven't lost a game. Some of their top players so far this season: Bridget Merkel, 18 goals, 10 assists on the season. One of the top scorers in Monroe County. And then just some of their wins that, stand out. And a nice 2-0 win over Mercy. They've got shutouts in their last 3 games. It's been a while since they've allowed a goal. They beat the roof out of Athena recently, 6-0, which we're going to get to in a little bit. But Menden just keeps on chugging so far this season. And potentially, they did not play Spencerport this year. Potentially, I'm going to say one more time, potentially, this could be the year that Spencerport goes down.
I would love to be at that one, because I know the stakes and everyone involved at that game will know how important that game is in Section 5. Down to the sleepers, staying in Class A, I think in both boys and girls is a loaded bracket. I'm going with the Athena girls, and you alluded to they got whooped by Menden a little bit back 6-0. They lost to them 2-1 earlier in the year, so I don't know which game is more indicative on of the talent discrepancy. Probably somewhere in the middle. They also have another bad loss to Churchville Chi-Li 6-1. But other than that, this team has been within striking distance in most of their games. They're 11-4-1 because, I mean, let's be real. They have one of the best girls in Section 5, Mariana Hudson. 30 goals on the year, 7 assists. She is 9th in Section 5 points, but she's number 1 in the big school divisions in AA and A. The next closest is a girl with 46 points. Rihanna Hudson has 67. So that goes to show you, like, it's a 21-point gap between her and number 2 in the big school division. So she's a stud. They'll face Sutherland in round 1, believe on Saturday at 3. So they've taken out Sutherland twice this season. So they'll face Spencerport in the next round if both teams advance, and they haven't played each other thus far this season. And we all know Spencerport is legit. But if there's a team who, can make some noise, I'm going to take the team that in most situations is going to have the best player, and Athena will have that.
Yeah, you mentioned some of those losses, and obviously they're not good, but this is a team that all season long has been, a little bit hot, a little bit cold. They beat Sutherland 4-2 early in the season. We both mentioned they lost to Menden 6-0. They played them earlier in the season. They only lost 2-1. So, they've got nice results against a good Aquinas team. They just beat Penfield 3-2, a really strong team out of AA. So this is a team, you want to talk about a sleeper team. This is a team that can get hot. And like you said, Rihanna Hudson needs no more explanation. If you need more explanation, read the story I did back on her about 2 years ago. And then I'm going to go for my sleeper team. I'm going to Minders, the Blue Devils in Class B2. They're the number 3 seed. They are staring down a Bath Haverling team at 16-0, who is the number 1 team. They are also highly state ranked. Bath Haverling could be a team that faces Palmac in a Class B crossover game. Bath is currently number 5 in the state. But you want to talk about Minders. They just played Palmac. They only lost 1-0. They took them to overtime Lauren McDermott made 16 saves in that game. So you take a team like Palmac to overtime, that's going to get everybody's attention for sure. They've got some other wins on the season to, they beat Wayne in Class A 3-1. Some wins over, Mid Lakes, Waterloo, Olympia, just a long list of teams that they've beaten in their Class B bracket. So you talk about a team that could do it. They almost did against Palmac. Now, granted, I mentioned they had 16 saves for their goalie. They only had 2 shots, so a one-sided attack, but you got it to 0-0. And in playoff soccer, you get it to 0. You can keep getting it to 0-0. You get it to penalty kicks, anything can happen. So that could be the formula there.
Hey, styles make fights, If you're not used to that slow, snail's pace type of game, Minders might be able to creep up on you. I mean, they don't need to creep. They're a good team in their own right. But, I mean, take that same game plan and against Haverling, and all bets are off.
Exactly. So we got a lot of soccer matchups coming up for us. Like we said, one more week left in the high school football season. We've got a couple of games to watch here coming up for you. Carl, we mentioned it earlier. It's the top of our Class AA rankings. We got 2 teams that are primed for, a show to get us ready for the postseason Friday night.
Victor and McQuaid. I mean, the game's going to be at McQuaid. I don't really need to dress it up and make it any more spectacular than what it needs to be. Both of these teams are ascending in the right direction this time of year. And I believe, are the second round games or neutral site games?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not going to have any indifference.
No. They're home sites.
See, so this is where a game like this might have a little bit of a factor where who wants to travel to the other team for the second round matchup, because these teams will be 2-3, barring any other mathematical thing that I'm not great at on the spot. But like I said, this game has a little bit of stakes in that regard. They might see each other in a few weeks, and I think these teams are evenly matched, and we'll see who comes out on top.
Yeah, McQuaid's been, like we mentioned, they've been playing with fire a little bit. They're going to get a lot of fire again from Victor. So a good test to see, who's playing quarterback for McQuaid, how the quarterback's playing for McQuaid. A lot of things to watch Friday night. My game of the week, my game to watch is going in Class A. Hilton versus Canandaigua, our number 7 and number 8 teams in the state rankings. Or I keep saying state rankings. In our local rankings. Sorry, folks. I'm spraying myself with a water bottle. Bad AJ. 6-1 for both of those teams. Hilton hasn't had it to face an opponent of this quality since the first week of the season when they lost by a touchdown to Schrader. Canandaigua they've been getting their wins. It hasn't always looked pretty at times, but they've been getting their wins. I'm really more interested to see this from the Hilton side of things, to see kind of how much they've improved since that week 1 team, because I do think they have improved a lot, just with some of the results that they put up recently.
Yeah, like every time we put the rankings together, we're like, how high can Hilton go? Because, I mean, they had the one loss to Schrader, close one, but like they haven't really played another team of that caliber to raise them up. This would be a great test for them to see where they stand in Class A.
Exactly. So we'll have all those highlights for you coming up on Football Frenzy. We won't have the highlights for you of the Syracuse game, but that'll be in the second block. Things everybody will be watching. What time is that game, Carl?
It's a noon start.
Noon start. So Carl will be doing his best to balance keeping track of the Syracuse football game and getting all the afternoon games. Because unfortunately, we got a lot of all of our games are in the afternoon on Saturday. So,
folks, if you see me on the sideline between the hours of noon and 3:30, I respectfully say don't talk to me. I'm gonna just have my hand and just please, just respectfully, okay? Just respectfully. DM me or something. Just don't talk to me, okay?
Yeah, he will have his AirPods in the entire time. We'll see what kind of feats our engineering department can rig up. Maybe we can rig his phone to be right underneath the camera so he can watch both at the same time. People are going to go to great lengths to watch this game, and we'll see what lengths Carl does. But that'll do it for us on the High School Huddle. Thank you once again for listening, for watching. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on RochesterFirst.com. So give us some likes, comments, ratings, subscribe, all that good stuff. It's time to break the huddle. For Carl Jones, I'm AJ Feldman. Have a great day. Have a great week of high school football, and we will see you next week for our football section of the radio show.